Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this first webinar of a three-part series on discovering how to future-proof your company's profitability with digital adoption for the insurance industry. My name is Rob Morley. I'm one of the founders at Fountain, and I'll be your host for today. So this first session in the series will be on the most cost-effective ways to reach your audience. So today our speakers will give you insight into why your audience is online more and where their attention is, and then what digital tools and strategies can be used to reach and communicate to them. They'll give you case studies, proven methodologies to outline what strategies are most effective in insurance and give you practical guide as to where you can implement this yourself. So our first speaker is David Cooper. He's marketing manager at Fountain. Fountain are a global award-winning digital marketing agency. David has international award-nominated account experience and is now used to lead Fountain's own strategy. He will be focusing on the aspects of marketing outreach. Then our second speaker will be Harry Ford, head of strategy at Kyan, an acclaimed digital development agency. Harry has a strong and varied experience as a digital product designer across a number of sectors, including insurance. Driving the product strategy at Kyan, he will be focusing on how to better engage your audience and internal teams to better improve your products. So there should be a lot to take away from this. If you've got any questions, please enter them on the chat box, which should be to the right of your video stream, ideally with the name of the person you're directing the question at, and then at the end, I'll field these questions to our speakers. So again, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy this. David, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rob. So what we're looking at is the dawn of digital in the insurance industry. And the ultimate takeaway from this is that the insurance industry really needs to move online and adopt more digital channels into their marketing mix. So as stated in the description for the event, only 17% of chief information officers believe they are effectively implementing digital channels within their business strategy. But what I love about this statistic is that they were rating themselves. So CIOs know how much they need to improve, but there just doesn't seem to be the activity to prove that anything is being done to make this happen. Which is why we're hosting this webinar, to make a push in the right direction and to get more insurance companies realizing, where their audience is now, given the social changes of 2020, and two, what digital channels are best utilized to reach this audience. And I'm going to be directly addressing these 2 points for you today and showing how central digital is to a profitable marketing strategy moving forward. And the first and most important point to start with is for everyone to understand how this move to digital is not something to watch out for in the future, but something that has already happened. So if you're one of the 83% not being as efficient in including digital, you really need to change now, as your competitors could well be in that 17% doing it right and getting a leg up on taking market share from you. So to give a visualization of how much there is to be gained from adopting digital, a Forrester report InsurTech funding roundup of Q3 just last year saw a 31% increase in InsurTech funding compared to the previous quarter. So this was an astonishing increase from 1.3 billion to 1.7 billion dollars within the space of a quarter. So there's a heck of a lot of money in adopting digital and insurance. And a Juniper research report also speculated how artificial intelligence could account for as much as $20 billion in premium underwriting by 2024, compared to just 1.3 billion in 2019. So again, a staggering increase. And hopefully this should give you some idea of how valuable adopting digital channels is to the insurance industry. And the first part of this is generating more leads, sales, and interest through digital marketing channels. I'm going to be talking about reaching your audiences at the first part. So where are your audience? And I mean, the short answer is online. They're on the web. So web usage has only increased since it was created back in the 1980s, from 1 person to, I believe, 4.5 billion people roughly in 2020. The pandemic now means nearly everyone is working from home and spending more hours online than off. Virgin Media, as an example for one, stated that daytime internet usage has actually increased by 100% during the pandemic. And what these two stats show us, amongst loads of other stats, is that the pandemic has massively sped up the number of people active online, but also that this was a pre-existing trend. This online migration was not caused by the pandemic, but merely sped up by it, as the number of people online has increased every year since its creation, and is now used by more than half the world's population before the pandemic even hit. So it's likely that it's only going to continue at a faster rate post-pandemic. So if they are on the web, how do you reach them? There's, again, quite a simple answer to this, and it's through digital ad channels. I've put the four kind of big giants within this space up here, and they're the ones I'm going to be talking about a bit more, particularly Google, and that's because they are the most useful ones to the insurance sector. And the rise of comparison sites has driven a lot of visibility over pricing. So if you aren't able to compete in that kind of space, then paid ads, PPC, is going to be even more important to making sure you get visibility with your audience. So let me start by going through some of the strategic elements of these platforms that you can start using even from today. First up, I'm going to look at Google and Microsoft Ads. They work in very similar ways. Both have search engine elements as well as display networks and millions of websites that they partner with that show display banners. Display being more top to middle of the search of the funnel, and then search being kind of more middle to bottom. So driving awareness at the top all the way through to intent at the bottom. And the important thing to note about this funnel is that anyone could enter at any stage. Whilst awareness, yes, will drive the most in terms of that first contact, people still could enter further down. So a nifty tactic to invest in when search with the search element is to target more niche terms. So these might be what we call, long tail keywords that involve quite long phrasing, such as the examples I've given here. So not just targeting travel insurance, but travel insurance for females in their 30s, or even using terms within the search that could potentially determine the kind of pricing that people are looking for, like cheap, luxury, middle range, those kinds of things. So it really does narrow down and hone in that audience you're targeting to people who are far more relevant to the products that you're offering. It also kind of unlocks a hidden potential in markets. So some examples that we've done in the past are identifying specific wording that has maybe evolved within the industry that wasn't used 5 years ago, that is used today, but because no one's really caught onto that, they haven't added that to their keywords. And it, as I mentioned earlier, because you're targeting a far more relevant audience, means that your budget is being focused on the nearest possible matches. So you're getting less wasted spend. Remarketing is a key aspect to all of this, the consideration and intent sections of that funnel particularly. And these channels are absolutely fantastic for it. I've actually added in there all of the number of days that you can actually remarket to users for. I've added Facebook and LinkedIn there as well. Google and Microsoft, though, are the kind of big giants in this area. You can target people for over a year after they visited your site if you have that pixel on there. And what this does is keep you front of mind during the middle and bottom of the funnel, when customers may not necessarily be ready to buy, or they may be ready to buy but are considering. So when they do decide, when they do actually want to make that purchase, your name is the one that comes to mind. And whilst remarketing someone for 540 days may seem a little bit annoying, that's where you need to be creative about the content that you're serving in these remarketing ads and the landing pages that they lead to. We call this blockbuster content. And what we would advise is people change this content up every 3 weeks, even months potentially, to make sure that it's useful to the people that you're reaching. Give them helpful, practical, actionable content. Give them stuff that's going to be useful to their life that they find interesting. And you'll see your engagement increase. And eventually this will trickle down the funnel to your sales as well. This is especially key at this time, as people are looking for companies that are supporting them during hard times like pandemics. So if you're that company that's supporting them, they're going to be more likely to buy from you when they need the product. It's serving, not selling. And the kind of last point on these platforms is automation. It's been a big thing for quite a few years now, but it just continues to get better and more refined every single year. These platforms have some of the most advanced automation of any platforms out there in the form of bid strategies. So we would advise thoroughly including these in any kind of strategy you have with Google Ads or Microsoft Ads. So, when you want to show what they are basically is when you want to show your ads, search or display, you're bidding against your competitors for that real estate, that online space. What automated bid strategies do is they decide how much to bid for you based on your goals. You tell it, I want this kind of ROI, I want this kind of reach, I just want to maximize my clicks. And then Google and Microsoft will work towards those goals for you. So it kind of takes that time out. And we would generally advise for top of funnel campaigns, you probably want to be focusing more on cost per click. And then for middle and bottom funnel campaigns, ROI or cost per lead. And the idea is then you only bid the max that you absolutely need to and absolutely can to achieve your targets. Hopefully this should then feed into your sales targets, your larger company strategic goals, and your commercial targets as well. Something that we've just kind of cottoned on as well that's kind of changed in the pandemic is how phone call ads are doing much better now. So that's again something to look out for and include in those strategies. Next up, LinkedIn and Facebook. So whilst including social media is not necessarily the first step, Google should absolutely be seen as your priority. And if you have budgets, they work well for top and middle of funnel. Because what LinkedIn and Facebook display can do, that Google can't or Microsoft can't, is to narrow down audiences to an even greater degree and segment audiences in ways that the other platforms can't. So Facebook has your B2C covered. You target people based on their personal interests. So people of a certain age who are interested in going outside, spending lots of time doing extreme sports. This means, again, you're negating as much wasted spend as possible by targeting the most relevant people, in fact, only relevant people to your product. And what these ads should do is lead directly to that product on your site, not just your homepage, that you're offering exactly what you say you are. And it shortens their journey, making it easier and quicker for them to understand what the product is, what its benefits to them are, and then get in contact with you and make the purchase. Up here, I've just put some examples of all the different, I believe this is pretty much every different interest that you can target by. As you can see, they've all then got subcategories under them. So there really are hundreds of ways that you can, and thousands even, that you can combine these to get to your perfect person. So on LinkedIn, it's a similar kind of way of targeting people, but it does this through professional attributes instead of personal interests. So it's more B2B, but can be good for targeting some demographics that Facebook can't. For example, targeting people only in senior job roles within specific departments in companies that are themselves in specific sectors, all layered on top of each other for a really small, relevant audience of professionals. If you came to this webinar via an ad, which I know some of you did, this is how we marketed this event. we use this kind of method of identifying individuals, and it works really well. So I guess what it's useful for, as I said, is making sure that you've got that combination of more personal interests against those more professional ones to make sure you're hitting the whole spectrum. An example for people in the insurance sector might be targeting people in HR, procurement, and leadership roles in big companies like Apple, HelloFresh, even HSBC. So it's great for that kind of targeting. And this then leads on to my final point before I hand back to Rob, which is messaging. How and what messaging to use to communicate to audiences is key to getting them into your marketing funnel. The 3 big things to take away from this, I'll put on the screen here. So from a psychological standpoint, missing out on something is actually far better motivator for humans than gaining something. I'm not saying you should focus on kind of the stick rather than the carrot method or scaring people into buying products, but more focus on the benefits of your product and what people would be missing out on if they were not to choose your product. And on that, as much as we like to talk about all the cool features that we can offer and our amazing brand success, to be honest, people don't care as much about this as they do about themselves and the benefits they can get out of a product. And so the first thing they should be seeing are the benefits on their own lives. What are they getting out of it? And then you can start talking about the features and the awards you may have to back that up. One thing the pandemic has definitely emphasized in copy is serving, not selling, which I mentioned earlier. Focusing on how you are helping people and make it more personal as well than previously would have been. So in emails, address them by name. In ads, make sure the tone is actually a conversational one. The same with landing pages, as if you were speaking to them one-to-one. Because at the end of the day, that's kind of what you're doing. You're speaking to a person, not a number. So in conclusion, 3 kind of big takeaways from this. People are online more than ever, so marketing channels are the new way to reach that audience. Second, Google Ads is absolutely your starting point. It is an absolute must, and then branch out into Microsoft, LinkedIn, Facebook. And finally, speak to them like they're people, focusing on the benefits rather than boasting about your brand. There may be hesitation to jump on this online trend, especially if so much business has previously been done through brokers. However, there was an insurance report by JD Power. It's been going for the last 20 years. And in 2020, it revealed that for the first time ever, websites surpassed humans as the most important aspects to client interaction services. So slowly, those more traditional methods like brokers are becoming less central to the marketing mix, and digital marketing is standing in as a more reliable form of lead acquisition. Thank you very much. That's my presentation. I will now hand back to Rob.
Great. Thank you, David. That was super insightful. So next we have Harry from Kyan. Harry, it's over to you.
Hello, everyone. Oh, one second, I'm just going to get this organized. So I'm going to be speaking to you all about today, engaging teams and audiences to better improve your products. First off, I'm going to introduce myself. This is a rather serious photo of me. My name is Harry Ford, and I'm the head of product strategy at Kyan. So my job as a strategist focuses a lot around our customer problems and how we really move forward in aligning our teams around how we can solve these problems. I tend to do a lot of teaching and running of workshops, like strategic workshops, design sprints, and growth workshops. So design sprints and things like that are sort of solution-based kickoff projects, with design and collaboration. Kyan, who I work for, we are a creative technology agency. We're a team of 40+ experts, strategists. We have designers, engineers. We have a huge range of really experience from many different spaces and sectors, but we help clients like Zurich within insurance, to save the children in the charity sector. We're united behind the simple belief that technology doesn't solve problems. It's the people who actually make it that do. Over the last few years, my team has really worked on a number of well-known insurance brands, sort of designing and building out projects from healthcare to more recently a pet insurance engagement platform. One thing we do really well now is be an extension to our client teams. We can provide sort of the know-how to run effective design sprints, sort of that kicking off that solution design part, and anyone who is needed maybe that might be missing from an external team to run one of these workshops, we can add in. So thus we kind of amalgamate ourselves really closely with the client teams to run workshops. Sometimes it's just been me, maybe working with clients as an extension, maybe being a unbiased facilitator. A lot of the time it will be me or a designer or a developer who joins a client team to work alongside their maybe already existing development team. This kind of enables prototypes to be made and kickstart maybe multiple projects far quicker than they ever usually could. Zurich in particular is one client we've worked with for quite a while now, for around 4 years, helping them with problem definition, design sprints. With their Innovation Foundry, it was founded about 3 or 4 years ago now. I've worked closely with them on around 50 initiatives. We've parked plus 20, I think now, initiatives which have been stopped for reasons with internally or whatsoever. We've engaged over 160 startups. This is globally now, and we've had around 800 plus workshop attendees across the business, and that's from the offices in Portsmouth to Barcelona, which we've engaged with teams in Barcelona. So a lot of these processes that we put in place are really going global now. Today, what I'm going to do is kick off with a high level on the problems that I see insurance companies face, that I see a lot of, and then we'll go into how we help put in some practices to solve these pain points. So problems, as you can see here, I've sort of split out a couple of pieces which I see. A lot of what David and the guys will be speaking around analytical data and developing a culture that understands the power of your data, using this data to maximize and create better customer experiences. What we tend to focus on and what I see a lot of problems within insurance is the corporate paralysis. So as I like to call it, sort of that decision paralysis. This happens to everyone. I mean, I've even found myself happening to me a lot during lockdown. I'm being locked, between the same 4 walls the whole time. And I have this decision paralysis of lots of meetings and things. But decisions from small frontline things to maybe larger strategic decisions at leadership level are sometimes hard to decide on. And also we're going to speak around engaging your team, which is really important, and your audience as well at the same time, in very effective ways that can help improve your products. So I'm going to walk you through these sort of 3 steps through this talk in order to help solve the problems I just mentioned. I want to kick this off just to quickly talk about a little bit more about that decision-making piece. So too often I find when I go in and I meet teams that managers believe that they are usually the decision maker and not their teams. And then they wonder why. I find that employees are not always fully engaged on the decisions that are being made or the outcomes that are being put out. If we want to build a culture where people are actually empowered within the company, we must see ourselves, I think, more like so if you see yourselves more like a server, like in a restaurant, you help a table decide what is best to order. Thus, you kind of facilitate this decision making. You're not actually controlling that decision. I speak to a lot of companies where they say, we really need help in actually making things just happen. We have these endless meetings around a certain subject, data maybe, or a product decision. We might have 3 meetings in a week about this, and then we all leave and nothing actually happens, and people are all off on a tangent and they speak around certain things and it all gets distorted. This is the type of decision paralysis, really. And one big reason why a lot of the projects or ideas that we think about don't actually get built. So I'm going to walk you through how we at Kyan tend to help teams not only stop this paralysis, but better engage with your teams and your audience. So we'll go over how to start focusing on the correct business and customer problems and how to collaborate nicely with workshops and customer engagement, which will hopefully help you improve your products. So starting off with building a culture of innovation within your business, I want to walk through a few steps within this. So I think there's about 3 steps in here. So creating an innovation strategy is our first one, embarking into this innovation education across your teams and your business. And then a really important step is this collaborative workshop piece. So first things first, we need to create and communicate an innovation strategy, this being, a plan and a framework. The innovation strategy sets the direction for your teams, your employees. The expectations and the goals regarding innovation should be really clear within this strategy to every employee. Communicating the innovation strategy across, all functions and hierarchy levels is really important, so everybody understands it. For example, you could do this in a form of an information campaign internally or a company-wide presentation. Innovation education, I think, is a longer-term game plan. It's like products, you've got to iterate and constantly do this. Everyone talks about innovation, I find, but often employees can't explain what this actually means for their company or for them. And what they individually can contribute to this. To be creative and innovative requires lots of different skill sets across your company. We need to show how much we actually value and how important their particular role is in us to actually achieve the strategy that we've set out. So before running any innovation or design thinking workshops, we make sure we send out this correct information, I think, to the teams. We need to be really transparent, as transparent as possible, to encourage this involvement that we want. We can give tips and maybe show the kind of activities that we will be partaking in to help ease anxiety, so people have never done this sort of thing before and have never been involved at such a high level before. But we want to bring this into a fun level for them. One thing I'd say is at the start of all the workshops that I always run, I always say that anything that we contribute into these, nothing you contribute is wrong. It eases any tension they may have. Ultimately, the training and education of the workshops we run is in the doing, but we try and help as much beforehand as possible as well to encourage and bring excitement to what we're going to try and achieve. And then it brings me on to sort of the collaborative workshop part. So as well as providing information and raising awareness of innovation as a whole over the company, we need to make it obvious that employees are directly involved in our innovation process in the form of these creative workshops. So this meeting intensive culture, which I mentioned within many organizations today, makes it really hard to achieve forward progress, especially with user experience enhancements or innovative ideas. Often meetings are filled with too many, agenda items, lukewarm brainstorming or non-purposeful sort of crosstalk that happens. If you're working in that kind of culture, a one-day workshop or a half-a-day workshop can be a great way to break out of this meeting rut. A workshop system is really there to generate and collect and collate information, to organize then and make sense of what you've created, and make sure all of that information is usable and actionable. The best workshops, I think, are these step-by-step, really repeatable systems that allow a group of people to align and solve problems really fast. And I genuinely think it is the fastest and one of the most enjoyable ways to kind of make progress on what we want it to be meaningful work. The people involved in the workshops then tend to I feel like they tend to end up being more passionate about what they actually are working on due to the ownership of what they are doing in the workshop. So you could kind of summarize a workshop to anyone overall. I think it would be bringing the creativity and fun back into these meeting times. I feel like with the meetings that we do over and over again, we end up stifling our creativity, in my opinion. So doing workshops allow us to more creatively work together with others as we normally wouldn't in this sort of cross-collaborative way. I'm going to be talking about 2 collaborative workshops really quickly, which we've successfully installed at Kyan, and places like Zurich, which we've installed them, which we use on a regular basis. And these are problem framing and design sprints. So one of the most important things which companies need to do is, and it was mentioned previously by David as well, is to start with your problems. So these are business and customer problems. So I run a lot of workshops when we kick off projects be that a design sprint or a discovery workshop. And what happens is a lot of the discussion always ends up going back to the problem. We end up going around in circles. These problems that we're trying to solve, and what customer we're actually trying to solve it for. So I want to speak a little about how we tackle this at Kyan, but also how I've helped many other companies focus properly on the right problems at the start of your projects. So I've done a lot of speaking around problem framing, and what I find is, as humans, we love solving problems. We're kind of wired for it. Unfortunately, unless we know everything there is about, or everything we is there to know about a problem, or who we're solving it for, say, and why the problem is or isn't important to them, the solutions that we're going to come up with and create are little to no value. So when working with large organizations, problem framing is something that I actually now get asked for more and more and more. The need to make sure that companies have, and the directive staff have, the right direction at the beginning is really important, because they're going to be committing lots of resources and time and staff. Some of the shot callers in these businesses tend not to have the time to spend on, a week-long design solution workshop or a process. But the involvement in, say, a half-a-day problem framing workshop helps give them the confidence that the team that they're working on this is going to be doing the right things and focusing on the right problems. It can be quite tempting, I find, to start things like a design sprint, which I'm going to explain more in a minute. If you haven't heard of design sprints, it's a solution process. To get an outcome really incredibly fast. It's incredibly compelling, I find, to be able to do that. It's like, yeah, we want things faster. It's great. However, in order to run efficient design solution workshops or other types of lean project, it's absolutely crucial to ensure that you're solving the right problems. At that point, you can then also select the correct team that you want to put into designing the solution out. So, you can bring in a marketer if you need in the next phase. It's usually a senior stakeholder, I find, who is great at strategy, but are often removed from the day-to-day delivery of work or projects. You put them in a problem framing workshop and they come into their own. Problem framing workshops are incredibly good at distilling key business issues and are there ready to help focus their energy on what's important. So as a quick walkover, as you can see on here, I'm going to explain exactly what we do and what it helps us achieve. So we start with Discover. This explores the business context. We gain, as a team, a real clear understanding of the current business needs. We go into Context, which is we have a gained understanding of what we should be aiming for. Maybe what the team as a whole have tried before, what past experiences we've had in this area, what successes we've had, and it kind of helps us maybe leap forward certain pain points. Perspective. One of the really important things here is make sure that we have a good understanding of what the audience or the customer are doing and explore their journey as a full. So we explore their goals and their pain points of this journey and the pains that we're talking around. We then align. So we make sure that we have the right team members, as I mentioned before, to go forward into solution design. So it's really important because lots of teams tend to want to take too many people forward. Like they have a team, we've got to bring 14 people into our next workshop. And you can't run very effective workshops with more than, I say, around 7 people. And frame. At the end of a workshop, you will formulate a full problem statement, which you're going to focus on going forward. Within this statement, you will decide who is having the problem, what the problem's about, where the problem occurs, and why it's actually worth solving. So from all of these things, what you ultimately want to get as well is stakeholder buy-in. The main thing we should do when starting a project is making sure that we are validating whether a real problem exists, and then we define it like this. So people only buy a solution, I find, to a problem they actually have, and a problem must be validated with a user base, because supply obviously can't demand without and exist without a market need or a demand. The life of a new product or a business can be divided, I think, into sort of that before and after a product market fit. The last thing you want to do is begin investing and growing an idea in a business which doesn't actually fill a real market need. You'll be forever trying to convince your users and your audience, and you'll be on that sort of constant uphill struggle from the beginning. Now I'm going to talk us to this last part, which is just how we create more engagement with our team. So I mentioned this before about workshopping and collaborative workshopping, but also with our audience as well. So one of the steps within building an innovation culture is to run these collaborative cross-team and skilled workshops. When coming up with ideas on a solution, we may need the skills of an engineer or someone from marketing or sales. This amalgamation of these different skills working together I genuinely think is the purest essence of innovation, and it's the way we can get real innovation out. This is why we in particular use this one piece called design sprints at the start of our solution design projects. For those of you familiar with this or familiar with other types of agile or lean or design thinking, maybe the steps and tenets of a design sprint aren't really a far cry from what you're maybe already familiar with. A sprint takes a team from a formulated challenge, like the problem which we've already formulated within the problem framing, to a realistic prototype all within a week. So by the end of a Friday, you'll get your answers from the interviews that we're going to hold with real customers, your real customers who engage with a prototype. Most importantly, I think it's the shared understanding your team and your product owner will have. It's like someone said it to me once when we did one. It's like having the coolest collaborative brief ever at the start of a project. So to give you a quick overview of and give you a context of what we do in a design sprint, this is our week overview, so 1 to 5 days. We start at day 1. It's understanding. So here we look at the goals and the challenges and the opportunities as a team. Day 2, we start to get more creative in our solutions with our ideas. Day 2, I get people out of their comfort zones a little bit. I get marketers drawing and I get everybody drawing, and it's, I can get everybody involved with this collaborative design piece, which they never would in other projects. Days 3 and 4, we run 2 days of prototyping. The original design sprint that was originally set up within Google Ventures was only 1 day of prototyping. We like to do 2 because we can get a higher fidelity level of designs within a prototype. So if we're testing on a phone, we like to really put it on a mobile for them and let them scroll around as if it's as real world as possible. And day 5, validation. So we validate our solution with the users by testing it on them. So based on the results from our user testing sessions, you will have a real good sense from whether the idea that you've created is worth pursuing with maybe, just further refinements needed, or quite simply that the idea needs to be parked for now as we haven't had enough research and we're not quite sure on the problem fully. Also, I think ultimately a design sprint should help you answer the biggest question, which is this idea worth further investment in time, your money and effort? Hopefully that gives you a good overview of some of the processes that help improve our product releases better, and to help you better engage with your teams, but also your customers and your audience as well. These tailored processes, which I've just sort of walked over, we've gone through these with lots of clients and they're proving very popular now, because we kind of make sure we start with the culture, I think, and we're working with the teams really closely. We make sure we get buy-in at the start, and then we make sure we focus on the correct business and customer problems. And that's everything for me. I hope you enjoyed my talk.
Brilliant. Thank you, Harry. That was super interesting. So let's jump straight on to questions. If you remember, guys, stick your questions in the comments. Don't be shy. Just tell me who it's for and I'll field the question. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to jump into some questions we've already got. So, David, if I start with you, and I think this is a really important question, and it goes across just about every sector at the moment, but specific to insurance, how has the pandemic altered the performance of ad platforms?
Yeah, so I think there are 2 kind of aspects to this that need to be differentiated. The first is what the product actually is. There are certain products, travel being a big one, that is obviously going to have taken a massive hit compared to others. But when you're looking at the platforms themselves and what's actually changed in terms of, I guess, the more technical side, one thing that we've noticed, I kind of briefly mentioned it earlier, is that phone leads and phone ads that push for phone calls are doing much better than they were pre-pandemic. And lead lead ads that are usually form driven are not doing as well. So I think there's an aspect of far quicker and faster interaction with, you know, the company itself that kind of is stimulating that, and potentially a bit in as well with giving out personal details. GDPR has been a massive thing, and there's obviously lots of stuff going around at the moment with all the different platforms and privacy. So I think making sure that you can have that quick contact and making sure they need to give as little detail as possible to you is really important. So that's really key, and that can be done on most platforms. I think one thing that we are also seeing is generally the platforms are adapting to what products are kind of doing well. So travel isn't doing as well, and I guess the more kind of personal insurance in those kind of aspects has meant that social media channels have taken a little bit of a hit, but actually Microsoft and Google generally seem to be doing better. So that's generally what we've seen. That is quite broad. As I say, it's quite product dependent, but outside of that, and those are the trends.
Great. And I suppose just a quick kind of associated question. So thinking about messaging and copy, how do you think about copy for each platform? Should it be the same? Like, is there a particular format that we would use in terms of copy for each platform?
So it definitely needs to be different for every platform that you're using. You're going to be hitting different audiences with each. As I mentioned earlier, with Facebook, there's a more focus on personal interest, what films they're into, what holidays they like going on. LinkedIn, it's more professional. What position do you have? What sector do you work in? So they do require very different, not just words, obviously, to hit those different audience interests, but also formats as well. And again, it's different for search and display. You know, with the social media platforms, you more want them to kind of blend in with the platforms and just seem like normal posts. So actually going for more casual wording and that kind of approach works best. Whereas with search, you want to really be honing in specifically on what they're searching for and the solution to that. You want to immediately go into, here's the benefit, here's the solution, because they're searching for it. So it's further down the funnel. They're either in a consideration or potentially even an intent stage in terms of purchase willingness. Great.
Harry, I'm going to jump in with a question for you, because I think this is a super relevant question in kind of in lieu of what you've talked about. How do you get buy-in and interest from the wider teams to actually do something like a design sprint?
Yeah, it's interesting. I get asked this a lot. I think it takes time sometimes because companies tend to be a bit stuck in terms of how to innovate, and it feels like a big step or a big investment to be able to start this process. Whereas really what I found with and what we did with Zurich originally was we just kind of went in as us and we went in and actually run a couple of very quick educational pieces and very quick sort of tester pieces, because the buy-in is kind of like, who has the skill set to be able to run something like a design sprint? And, you know, is it going to be a lot of wasted time? Are we going to be doing a draw? Are we just wasting our time? You know, it's things like this. I think in the doing of a design sprint, I think everybody instantly sees the huge value and the speed of what you are achieving from this. So, you know, once within Zurich, like once the companies, and we'd brought people in from different parts of the business, say sales or car insurance or engineering and places like this, they were taking part and they were achieving so much in such a short space of time that the one or two leads or the CEOs that were involved were then pretty much spreading it for us. They were saying, you know, this is really powerful. Like, this is just working for us. We've been able to unvalidate an idea really quickly, and, you know, something that we've been talking around for a year isn't actually worth us doing, or it is worth us doing, you know, one or the other. And it's just, I feel like a lot of the buying is in the doing. So if you can kind of go to something like this, and then bring the relevant people to something like this, and actually hear people talk about it and show the value of and the power that it's brought to other companies as well. So I think it's Zurich has won multiple awards for some of the products that we've launched with them over the years now, and it's kind of seeing the value in that, I think, and it does really work.
Great. So I suppose it's interesting, isn't it? So I guess once they do one design sprint and they have the positive experience of doing it, it starts to permeate through the business, and they'll start to do more, and it becomes part of culture.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just workshopping in general as well. It's not like, when you as a facilitator in a workshop, it's the same in a design sprint. Like, everybody is equal. So there is no CEO that is running a design sprint. It is a neutral facilitator who is totally unbiased for your business and your sector, wherever you are, and they will put you through that. You just got to trust the process, and you walk through this process, and by the end of it, you've got such insight and output that it is like, it's amazing. Everybody sits there and is like, how did we come up with this in 4 hours today?
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's not about hierarchy, it's about meritocracy, like best ideas win, basically.
Yeah, and it really is. Yeah, it's very diplomatic. Like, we don't sell any of our ideas. So when we're creating ideas within the workshop, we all do it on Post-it notes. And obviously we do this digitally at the moment. So we do this all through programs like Miro, and we can do this. I find it actually much easier online now than it was probably in person, because the screen, I think itself, and the computer is almost like a shield for the team. People are much more confident about speaking up probably on calls than they would be in an in-person workshop. So it is very level, and you'll find that your idea, which you've been gagging to talk about for years, and you've put it up there, and if it's not quite right, then maybe you realize you've got to change the wording, or you've got to think about it a bit more. So it's really interesting.
Great. So here's a question for you. Are people within our own business able to facilitate these collaborative workshops? And if so, do you have any tips?
Yeah, that's one thing that we always try and work towards, in terms of, we don't want to be always the facilitator. As in, when we tend to go into a lot of companies, we say the best practice is for us to be able to help you facilitate and teach, because one of the problems, as I was saying before, sort of that corporate paralysis, is anybody who facilitates this has usually got way too much bias, or they've got something in their corner that they want to push, and already that's stopping the ideas of everybody getting through. And there's going to be, if you can get someone that's truly neutral to come in and help you facilitate, then you will find that the best ideas bubble to the top, and you're really focusing on the correct problems. You can eventually, like we have with Zurich, we've worked with a lot of their teams, and we've built up their team from, it didn't exist before, their innovation foundry, to what it is now, which is a larger department. And I work with Alex, who's at Zurich, and he can do everything that he couldn't do at the beginning. It was more design focused type pieces and things like that. Once you've done it a few times, you get used to doing it, and it's becomes very easy and powerful once you realize what you can unlock in people through this sort of design thinking.
Great. So I don't think we've got any more questions coming through. So I think we'll leave it there. So yeah, we'll end it there, guys. So thanks to both of you, of course, and to the audience for taking the time to join us. I hope everyone took some valuable information, some useful practical actions. So obviously, if you want to, talk to our speakers, ask them any further questions, then feel free to reach out to them on LinkedIn. David Cooper at Fountain, Harry Ford at Kyan, and I'm sure they'll be happy to chat. So see you guys tomorrow at the same time for the next webinar in the series, and then on Thursday for the final one. Thank you.